Hey guys, it's Jet888 here. It is October 7th. Just want to share real quick this document 3-39-4.40 Internment and Resettlement Operations, February of 2010. It's interesting. Destruction notice: destroyed by any method that will prevent disclosure of contents or reconstruction of the document. Headquarters, Department of the Army. So this is, the publication is available online. I just wanted to show you one part of this I thought was sort of funny. Just looking real quickly, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is basically discussing internment and resettlement. That's IR operations. So as part of internment, these populations include U.S. military prisoners and multiple categories of detainees, civilian internees, that's CI, retained personnel, that's RP, and enemy combatants, while settlement operations are focused on multiple categories of dislocated civilians, kind of like Maui, maybe, those kind of people. Or Paradise, you know, people who have been attacked or whatever, now they don't have anywhere to go, so now they have to relocate them. Military police conduct IR operations during offensive, defensive, stability, or civil support operations. All military police units are specifically manned, equipped, and trained to perform IR operations across the spectrum, and those identified as IR units are specialists within the Army for this role. So they go into changing of terminology, the terms division forward, central collection point, and corpse holding area. It talks about theater internment facility, that's TIF. This reads, this manual recognizes the role of police intelligence operations in IR operations and enhances the critical importance of military police and military intelligence interactions at all echelons. This says it further highlights the long-standing requirement to treat all individuals humanely according to applicable U.S. laws, regulations, international laws, execution orders. You know what that means, execution, right? There's your Department of Defense. This states, moreover, it stipulates that ill treatment of U.S. military prisoners, detainees, all that, and DCs is strictly prohibited, regardless of any circumstances or the chaos of major operations. But the next page down, in Chapter 4, it focuses on detainee operations planning and consideration. It includes a discussion on integrating intelligence and interrogation operation. Emphasis is placed on the treatment and protection of detainees, use of force, and training for detainee operations, so use of force. So how are you, well, let's go look at that. Chapter 1 shows a little tree here, starting with IR operations, internment operations, resettlement operations, keeps going down. Enemy combatants, that would be anybody who disagrees with the agenda, by the way. Anyone who provides misinformation. Internally displaced persons, evacuees, stateless persons. Internment, resettlement. So just really quickly looking at dislocated citizens. I love when they use or other purposes. So you can agree to something, but then they can throw in the, oh, for other purposes. Very open-ended, isn't it? Funny. Refugee is a person who by reason of real or imagined danger has left their home country or country of their nationality and is unwilling or unable to return. So they talk about status determination, and it says what EPWs are entitled until their status has been determined by a competent military tribunal or some other competent authority. Maybe like the WEF or UN or someone like that. The UN is completely involved in this. as is the Red Cross, Red Crescent. You might want to read chapter 2. So this also says the Army is the DoD executive agent for detainee operations. When they talk about release or transition, they also say reintegration efforts, and it goes with information and public affairs effort. That's AKA propaganda. So here's our chapter 4. This is kind of funny. Detainee processing kit, latex gloves, string, duct tape, blindfold material. Sorry about that. They also want to conduct an inventory of the detainee's property. It says segregate, ensure that detainees are segregated. So it's interesting because they have all these detainees, and they say the decision to release an individual at the POC, that's point of contact, may be made by the senior ranking person. And above, they also talked about getting all the biometrics, all the medical information on them. So is this, or could this just possibly be a big old roundup of just collecting data on everybody and then just releasing them? I don't know. One of their rules here is to de-escalate events at the POC, point of contact. Have you ever seen anything being de-escalated by either military or just the police? Do they de-escalate? Yeah, prevent attempts to escape, disrupt operations, or harm U.S. Army forces. So anyone trying to protect themselves or protect those that they love will be prevented from doing so. Provide adequate resources. So 429, and this is chapter 4, when planning tactical level operations that may include capturing detainees, plan for detainee processing regardless of the mission. So the processing seems like that is their key goal. Use the latest intelligence for capture estimates. Use detainee processing kits to process detainees at point of contact. Planning security to provide protection against external threats. So this says leaders at the POC, point of contact, must review the circumstances of an individual's capture, the confiscated items, and the individual's intelligence and evidentiary value to provide a thorough assessment. This says sufficient information should be reported up the chain of the commands so they can make an informed decision on whether to retain or release the individual. So basically they can hold them for as long as they want. So detainee processing technique upon capture, I'm going to go down to the silence. Prevent detainees from communicating with one another or making audible clamor, such as chanting, singing, or praying, because they know how powerful some of these things are. They know words are very strong, very effective. So silence uncooperative detainees by muffling them with a soft, clean cloth tied around their mouths and fastened at the backs of their heads. Do not use duct tape or adhesives. Place a cloth or either objects inside the mouth or apply physical force to silence detainees. Remember up on the very top where it says use ethical, what did it say? Force to me is not ethical treatment. Force and ethical treatment are two different things. So when they're discussing segregating, it also says keeping adults from juveniles and small children with mothers. So they're definitely going to be taking children with their mothers. So children and mothers are threats to the country. That's interesting. So they're going to tag, it was under the tag. So tag, ensure that each detainee is tagged using DD form 2745. Remember General Perna regarding Operation Warp Speed said D-Day is the beginning of the end. There's your D and D, D-Day, just a thought. But regarding the DD form 4137, they said take photographs and everything, like use every information you can so there's a better full documentation. such as a photograph taken, gives the increased ability to prosecute criminal detainees in courts of law. So their goal is to prosecute you. So this is funny. If a detainee is suspected of committing, being involved in, or having knowledge of terrorist acts, crimes against humanity, war crimes, or other crimes. So when we're talking about this, how come like the people like Gates and Fauci and, you know, all the, even the bigger people, how come they haven't been tagged or brought to the table? How come they haven't been criminally prosecuted? This is evacuate property retained by the detainee when the detainee is moved to the next detention level, and maintain controlled access to confiscated and impounded property. Remember in Maui, Maui, how they fenced off everything, and then they also took away the property of all these people. They detained them and they took them away. So I wonder if those people in Maui are in these camps. This says, before movement, an interpreter should be used to brief detainees on actions to take upon hearing the word halt, the need to remain silent at all times, actions to take during an emergency such as delay, crash, or enemy attack, signals used to direct detainee movement, response to escape attempts according to the ROE and RUF. And looking at Domestic Operational Law Handbook 2011, they talk about rules of force, that's RUF, rules of force, and use of force, that's UOF. And they also use the word echelons. In most cases, however, these RUF, that's rules of force, are, rules use force? Rules of use force would already be staffed and implemented by judge advocates at higher echelons. They like that word, echelons. And they even admit here training on rules of force, law, and policy. Many service members have not been trained on domestic law applicable to the use of force. So we've seen that a lot in our police departments, haven't we? They're not trained. They haven't been trained on domestic law. So regarding the nature of the threat, this is interesting. It says an attacker will generally have the service member at a disadvantage. They will almost always have the initiative, and sometimes they will have the element of surprise. One of the accepted principles of violent confrontations is that the attacker's action will defeat a reaction of comparable speed by the service member. So still looking at these RUF things, they're talking about a judge taking into consideration that during a life or death situation, the stress of the encounter can trigger the fight or flight or freeze response. So let's say during the use of force, it says they and the investigating officer should also consider the triggers of the fight and flight response. Consider them when judging a service member's reactions and statements in the aftermath of a shooting incident. Basically, give them leniency because of this natural response or this life or death situation, fight, flight, or freeze response. What about the fight, flight, or freeze response of the person being detained? Probably unlawfully. So this is also interesting because it talks about the Constitution and against that backdrop, the right to this legal authority, basically, and that they were all U.S. Army domestic use of force authority flows from the powers of the President as granted under the Constitution, the underlying authority of the President to order routine installation force. Protection and law enforcement could be justified under the President's executive powers. So basically, even though your civil rights are being violated, the President gave the executive orders, so you can use your force. And this is page 179 in Chapter 11 under the RUF for federal forces. So all executive branch uses of force are balanced against the civil rights of the public, while there's your three, they love the three, primary provisions of the Bill of Rights limit federal use of force in domestic operations. The primary focus is on the Fourth Amendment. The constitutional standard is whether the use of force violated the Fourth Amendment prohibition against unreasonable seizures. The U.S. Supreme Court has described this standard as an objective measure based on the facts and circumstances known to the service member at the time of the use of force. That leaves it pretty open, doesn't it? I didn't know. Remember the ignorance is no excuse for the law? What happened to that? But anyhow, this rule is the very heart of the standard for governmental use of force. The reasonableness. So that's pretty subjective, isn't it? The reasonableness of a particular use of force must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene rather than with the 20/20 vision of hindsight. What is all judge and jury, though? Isn't it the 20/20 vision of hindsight? The calculus of reasonableness must embody allowance for the fact that police officers are often forced to make split-second judgments. What about the person that is being detained? What about their split-second judgments? In circumstances that are tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving about the amount of force that is necessary in a particular situation, as in other Fourth Amendment contexts, however, the reasonableness inquiry in an excessive force case is an objective one. The question is whether the officer's actions are objectively reasonable in the light of the facts and circumstances confronting them without regard to their underlying intent or motivation. So the courts have long recognized the authority to use force, including deadly force, in the performance of federal governmental duties. Judge advocates must know the limits of the mission and how the commander intends to execute this mission to advise on the RUF that support the operation. This makes the mission analysis portion of the planning critical. It says the phrasing of operations orders or other directives that define the mission and operation are critical to the defining limits of this authority. Oh my God, it's just like, it says basically, it says further judge advocates involved in the development of RUF training must be careful that the training does not introduce procedures that effectively restrict the SRUF or introduce tactically dangerous or unsound practices. So basically you don't want to restrain our people so much that they can't do their job by using force. So it does become an interesting little blurb here of a little gray line. It says, likewise, judge advocates should not confuse the law of individual self-defense of a private individual with the authority of self-defense for government officials. This is just, anyhow, basically the military and the operational agenda seems like it's going to take priority over individuals' rights. So that's in Chapter 4. Detainee movement ensures the DD forms 2708 for detainees. So they're saying also method of transportation. They also say here regarding if you have to transfer on foot, it's not to be more than 5 miles. Also says movement by foot is not used for uncooperative detainees. So if you don't want to walk 5 miles, then just make sure you're a pain in their ass. Then they'll give you a ride, which is a good idea. So you can be moved by bus, cargo truck, train, by rail, by helicopter. So here's a different setup of your transportation if you're in a Chinook or Black Hawk. Here's if you're being transported by an airplane. All the detainees are in the middle. Regarding detainee release, this is interesting. It says ensure that releasable confiscated personal property accompanies the detainee. So basically, if you had any firearms, they might not consider that reasonable property. So you might lose that. It also says make public notification of release and or transfer only in consultation and coordination with the proper authority due to operation security concerns. Here's a legend. HUMINT is human intelligence. In Chapter 5, this says, military police keep records on detainees who appear to be leaders, create disturbances, and participate in hunger strikes. They observe patterns of behavior or communication within the detainee population that indicate unruly behavior. This type of information can be useful for HUMINT collectors during the interrogation process. So it was interesting because I read a document, it was almost a 900-page document from the Johns Hopkins University, and it was about psychological warfare. And one part of it, when it read, it was actually reading the Art of War. It was referring to it, and it basically stated that if you capture people and someone is super unruly, let them go and go more with the people who are just who consent and who are just more docile, because they said you don't want to waste your energy on those people. Cut them loose. And then it says the people regarding those who are very compliant, complacent, re-educate them, and if you can't re-educate them, kill them. So it's not in your best interest to be super just consent to everything, according to that document released by the Johns Hopkins University, by the way. Now this is kind of interesting because it talks about incentives. It says the commander may approve positive incentives at the local level. Any reduction in incentives or privileges must be approved by the first general officer in the detainee operations chain of command. So in the note, it's funny because basically it says, for example, like personal requests that military police provide an incentive to the detainee, aka such as a specialty food. It says, but the detainee is acting inappropriately, that facility commander may deny the incentive, aka food. You might just have food withheld from you if you are not cooperating. So they're basically just retraining you like Pavlov's dog. It's just sort of interesting to me. So one thing that just I don't know, kind of reminds me of something. I saw a patent a while ago. I'll try to find it if I can. It's Walmart has a patent for a remote collar. They call it an invisible fence collar, or invisible, I think it's invisible collar, invisible fence. And it's a collar that you put on an animal. It didn't say dog, it says an animal. And it basically says that remotely you can control that animal's direction of movement. You can remotely feed them. You can remotely give them water. And basically it keeps that animal that has this collar on them in check, like just in a specific area, without even needing a fence. So I just thought that was sort of interesting. That was the Waltons who own Walmart who have that patent. So I just it just looks like they can put your remote collar on you and control you. Anyhow, regarding the medical support, lab work, portable radiology, operating room, a radiology unit, and a full lab. Yep. And here is all your physical stuff is going to be documented, pictures taken, everything. Records are going to be kept of your weight, your general health, your nutrition, your diseases, all this stuff. I wonder if that's just to make a note is whose organs are the healthiest. So maybe they can be transported into someone else's body. Who knows? I don't know. So your behavioral science team members are authorized to make psychological assessments of the character, personality, social interactions, and other behavioral characteristics of interrogation subjects. So they have behavioral science consultation members. And every detainee will be undergoing a simple exam, medical exams. Military police also provide behavioral control. Any detainee who fails to follow orders or rules can be disciplined appropriately by military police. So, you know, you don't really want a medical exam, but that's no. You have to submit to their physical exams on you. So they've got your number here, and it says, even the most friendly or helpful detainee may be harboring the desire to harm a soldier, even if that soldier is a medical provider. So be on your toes, guys. I found a typo. It says further, medical personnel, medical personnel must keep military, police, and MI personnel apprised of any medical conditions that detainees have when could affect the conduct. They mean detainees have which could affect the conduct of detainee interrogation operations. So just know when they take you that it is the Interment Facility Military Police chain of command who is ultimately responsible for detainee care and treatment. So just know that they're who's responsible. Medical personnel will immediately report allegations or suspicions of abuse to military police or CID personnel, but will not conduct investigations. So as a detainee, you may be able to send and receive correspondences and complaints even in writing to. Okay, so this is interesting, detainee deaths. So in the event of a detainee's death, the commander of the intermittent facility or hospital, if the death did not occur in the facility, the commander of the unit that exercised custody over the detainee will immediately report the death to the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command or another appropriate military criminal investigative organization. So they can, look at on their own. It's again the Fox hen house thing to me. That's what that is. And so just a little note, when the detainee in U.S. custody dies, the attending medical officer will immediately furnish the detention facility commander or hospital commander or the commander of the unit that exercised custody over the detainee if the death did not occur in a facility with the, and this isn't information, and it says, this is funny, initial assessment as to whether the detainee's death was or was not the result of the deceased's own misconduct. And remember the use of force stuff that we talked about earlier? Oh, and I'm just going to interrupt myself a little bit. I just was looking through patents and I thought this is sort of funny. Use of blood in the cement, mortar, and concrete industry for obtaining a lightened material. And this is US 420-3674A of the United States. Charles Lehman. And it says the present invention relates to the use of blood in the construction and building industry, whereby blood and extracts of blood containing hemoglobin are used as air entrainment colloids. So basically they're just going to color the cement, so they get the red bricks. They get the red color bricks from blood or hemoglobin corpuscles. Anyhow, isn't that interesting? So the Masons. So this application was filed by Charles Lehman in 1977. So December 5th, 1977. It was granted 3 years later or less than. Anticipated expiration, 1997, expired lifetime. So they have a lifetime status. So they like the blood because it has air entraining properties, which means it makes things like lighter because of the blood. It fluffs it up a little bit. And another interesting thing, it says the animal blood or extract of animal blood are advantageously brought, I think they mean brought, into powder form either by drying, freeze drying, or by applying any other method known per se. So this word freeze drying kind of got my attention because I know Darpa does a lot of this. I've seen Darpa patents using freeze drying. So here is it's called dry powder composition comprising long chain RNA. Here is US 20180147146A1. Have you all heard me refer to 201? Remember event 201, the tabletop exercise that the Johns Hopkins University and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation were part of? And they happened to have, what was her name? Abriel Haynes, who was CIA. She's in the White House, by the way. Anyhow, and her father had some interesting relations with Obama. But event 201 here, I mean, US patent starting with 201. This patent, 201, about the dry powder composition comprising long chain RNA. Where have we heard that RNA word lately? So the present invention is directed to a storage stable formulation of long chain RNA. In particular, the invention concerns a dry powder composition comprising a long chain RNA molecule. The present invention is furthermore directed to methods for preparing a dry powder composition for spray drying. So I'm going to cut down here, spray drying. So agglomerates, granulates, microbeadlets, microspheres, pellets, and I did a little video the other day about pellets that our government is dropping over our head, and 97% of those pellets just happened to be trade secret, so you don't know really what they are. But it talks about solid products obtained by spray drying, spray freeze drying, spray congealing, multiple emulsion solvent evaporation or extraction. And in the description it says the present invention was made with the support from government under agreement number HR00, there's your 11-3-001, awarded by DARPA. The government has certain rights in the invention. Okay, so I'm going to cut down a little bit. The invention further concerns the use of such a dry powder composition comprising of long chain molecules, we've already said that, in the preparation of pharmaceutical compositions and vaccines to a method of treating or preventing a disorder or a disease. To first and second medical uses of such a dry powder composition comprising a long chain RNA molecule, and to kits, like maybe what, test kits, particularly to kits of parts comprising such a dry powder composition comprising long chain. They always repeat themselves. One good thing is it can degrade very easily, which is nice. This is interesting. It says, however, a main disadvantage of the use of RNA is its instability. Even though it is understood that RNA, such as naked DNA, understood that DNA, such as naked DNA, when introduced into a patient circulatory system, that means you're injected, you're needle crafted, is typically not stable and therefore may have little chance of affecting most disease processes. See, e.g. Proxen et al., or Poxen. Pharmaceutical development and technology. That'd be interesting to look that up. The problem is stability. So that's where the liposomes come into play. They put the freeze-dried stuff or whatever, the RNA, in a lipo nanotechnology so it can carry it into the cells. And that's what they say down here. Lipophilization, freeze drying. But anyhow, they can also, what if they're freeze drying and spraying it? Because Darpa said that they want it so they could spray it, aerosol, like with aerosols. Spray drying technology. Talk about particles, for inhalation. So they can spray it in the air and people will inhale it. Does that look familiar? So anyhow, they talk about the reason why they need to do this to be therapeutic and make a therapeutic and inhalable short whatever RNA for influenza virus, which is so funny because they have yet to ever even prove that that exists. So what the heck are they really doing? Anyhow, Darpa, when you basically say that you're releasing pellets into the environment, whoever, San Diego County is doing this with, again, like I said, 97% being trade secret, so they won't tell you what's in it, probably this. And has anybody noticed that your sleeping is a little bit different, whether it's more or less whatever system and method for inducing sleep by transplanting mental states? So they say there's a method of replicating a mental state in the first subject and a second subject, comprising capturing a mental state of the first subject represented by brain activity patterns and replicating the mental state of the first subject in the second subject by inducing the brain activity patterns in the second subject. So if any of you have watched any Netflix or whatever, you'll see how oftentimes they are always like showing brain transferring or being in a different person or something like that. And again, isn't that interesting? It also has a 201 in front of it. 201. Alexander Poltorak, like Poltergeist, Neuro Enhancement Lab, LLC. I just think, one thing might not be that interesting, but when you start looking at kind of all of these together, it's just interesting. And who else does the neuro stuff? That Musk, he deals with the neuro, whatever it's called, I can't remember. And regarding this field of the invention, the present invention generally relates to the field of neuromodulation and more specifically to systems and methods for selectively replicating desired mental states in a human or an animal. So that could be good or bad. You could induce excitability, aggression, sleep, you name it. If they've got your frequencies in your brain and they can literally either transport for it or whatever, like they're using EEGs. All right. And basically down here talking about your brain too, talking about synapses, electrical and chemical. So electrical, we are electrical beings, just to let you know. It says also they are influenced by concentration and types of ions on either side of the membrane. So that has a lot to do with your environment too, the electrical stuff in the environment. And here they're talking about oscillation between, neurons, different frequencies, bandwidths. So they talk about all kinds of frequency ranges that can induce sleep or whatever. They can totally change your behavior. So back to that intern camp thing in chapter 5 still, it's talking about any intrusion type technologies adopted and implemented that may lead to adding or deleting guard personnel, loudspeakers, radios, blah, blah, blah. They talk about standing operating procedures. Look at this PSYOP. Here's just one little visual. And look at this down here. There's your little cross. It's kind of like a red cross. Master planning. Anyhow, they talk about these training programs, challenges, resources, and end state. You just current HN confinement. You just need to read some of this to see what they've been training for. Just really interesting. And when they talk about HN, it means host nation. Host nation. Here's a picture, 4,000 capacity IR facility for compliant detainees. This is what your future home is going to look like. I hope you like cubes. Anyhow, there's your, where'd it go? Mortuary there. Yep. Interrogation, prison compound. Oh look, we get visitors. Yes. So basically your Department of Defense, the same people who commissioned the needlecraft from the all those pharmaceuticals like Pfizer and Moderna and all those people, they basically paid them to make it and disperse it. Well, Operation Warp Speed dispersed it, but there's your Department of Defense. Wow, interesting. It is possible that a detainee may bring a domesticated animal into the camp and may then request permission to slaughter the animal. Sounds kind of Middle East more to me, or some other country, not, well, who knows, and sacrifices, I don't know. And here they discuss the medical support at the internment facility. And if a detainee requires immunizations, no one ever requires an immunization of, especially of substances they don't even know what's in the injection. So good luck, guys. Good luck with all that. Sorry there weren't prettier pictures. Here's just one picture of detainee handling is under this caption. Notice the ginger?